So it's a warm welcome to today's session, Reflective Writing for Coaches. And just to introduce myself, so I'm Damien Onefour, the founder of Catalyst Onefour, and I'm really pleased to have a dear friend with me again today, Jackie Holder. And I'll introduce Jackie in a short while after I've set up some of the housekeeping for the session. So I appreciate seeing some familiar faces on the participants list, but just a few housekeeping for today's session. The first thing I'd say is, with all of these sessions, I always encourage people to have a pen and paper handy. But bearing in mind the topic today, I'm really going to encourage you to get some paper and a pen, because I've asked Jackie to do some exercises with us as a group today. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, this session is being recorded. So if you want to watch it later, you'll be able to, later this week, it'll be uploaded to our YouTube channel. So you'll find it on there. The third thing is to say that it's Jackie and myself you can see on screen. Everybody else will just be in a listen-in mode. And with that in mind, please use the chat panel. For the people that have dialed in from the web link, please use the chat panel during the session just to send through any questions or any comments as we're working through the session today. So we will be together for up to an hour for this session. I would also encourage you just to close down any other applications. And of course, that's not just to manage your presence, but also it does sometimes interfere with the transmission speed as well. So that's the housekeeping. Let me just spend a moment just introducing Jackie, and then I'll set up the session a bit more, and then we'll hand over to Jackie as well. So how would I describe Jackie? Well, so she's an executive and leadership coach, a coach supervisor, a coach trainer. She's also a writer and an author, and if I remember rightly, you've got, is it 3 books, Jackie? I know you've got your 4th one coming out. Is it 3 books?
Well, technically it's 5, but 3 will do.
So yeah, so Jackie's written some books such as Author of Your Soul Purpose, Be Your Own Best Life Coach, 9 Ways to Write Yourself Well, just some of Jackie's titles from her books. Jackie, is there anything else you'd like to say just to introduce yourself just before I just do a bit more setup for the session?
Yeah, I just want to say it's really great to be here again. I really love the fact that we're getting to do part 2, because you know what it's like. You never feel like there's enough time just once you get into it. So it's great to be able to build on the first session. And also it just links in really well with the whole concept that we're bringing to our call today, which is about reflective practice, it is a little bit more about follow through. So it's a really good opportunity to continue the conversations that we had in part 1.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Jackie. Thank you. And with that in mind, for people that didn't see the first part to this webinar, you can look at that on our YouTube channel, where Jackie and I were in conversation around the benefits and the purpose of reflective practice and journaling. And then because of the feedback we received, I mean, I did want to do a follow-up session with Jackie anyway, but today I've really asked Jackie if she can sort of take us to action and just share with us some exercises that, first of all, we can apply to ourselves as coaches, but then, you know, these may be things that we take into our coaching practice when we're working with our clients as well. So that's the intent of the session. As always, as we're coaches, I'm just going to ask you to just pause for a moment and think about this session. And I've got 2 questions on the screen that hopefully you can see. First of these is, what do you want to get from this session? So I'm just going to encourage you to spend a moment just reflecting on that first question. And if you've got a pen and paper handy, I'd also encourage you to just write a couple of notes down around what you would like to get from this session. You're thinking about yourself as a coach, thinking about your coaching practice, what's going to really be a useful outcome for you. And then the second question, as always, it's about your responsibility. So how do you need to be to get the most out of our time together? So again, just a bit of personal reflection there. You've set an intention for what you want to get from the session. Now, how do you need to be to get the most from today's session? So again, just encourage you just to put pen to paper and just capture a couple of thoughts, may just be a couple of words around that. And then with sort of this today's session in mind, you know, again, just for my and Jackie's benefit, I'm just going to invite you now just to add any questions that you have around this whole subject of reflective writing in coaching and reflective practice. And please feel free just to add some questions to the chat panel now, just so Jackie and I can just see what's on your mind, just so I can ensure as I'm facilitating a session with Jackie that I'm posing any questions that would be useful for you to ask. So just add those to the chat panel as we're starting. So feel free to add those through. Any questions that you have for today's session, thinking about this topic. Okay, so thank you, Natalia. So I can see the questions has come through, Jackie, which is really about how best to introduce the idea of journaling to clients and how to support them with this. And for Georgina, I'd love to know more about Kathleen Adams' journal ladder and how do you know which end of the spectrum to start with. So again, question for Georgina in there. Okay. So if any other questions come to mind as we're working through the session, just feel free to add those in. It just gives Jackie and I some ideas as we're running this session. We've obviously had a conversation around what the group would like Jackie to cover, but again, we can always put in some more questions just while we've got Jackie's expertise on the call. So Jackie, are you okay if I just start with a question, actually, that
of course.
That I'm often asked on our programs when we're training coaches, but also in supervision, and that's really picks up on Natalia's question, actually, how to best introduce the idea of journaling to clients and how to support them with this. So it was really around, how to get started with introducing this within the coaching.
I think that's a really great question, and it's something that I'm often having to do in my own coaching and supervision practice. And of course, this is only from my perspective, and I think it's really good for us all to think about different things And from my experience of working with clients over many years, what I have found is the thing that makes the most impact is actually doing a practice in an actual session. So introducing a bite-sized practice in the middle of a coaching conversation, in the middle of a supervision session, something that lasts a couple of minutes, 3 minutes, and we're going to be working with 6-minute writing prompts today. We're going to do 3 6-minute writing prompts. So you'll get to see what it's like to just engage in just a really short practice. Because I think overall, the whole idea of starting a journal feels very overwhelming for some people. It just feels like this is just another thing to do in our lives that are really busy, very stressful. People are working in very complex, uncertain, ambiguous environments. And the idea of more writing and writing that is of their own making, I think actually stresses some people out. So I like to think about creative ways to engage my clients. Clients need to be stimulated. They're already feeling that they're being pulled in so many different directions. So I bring in things like luggage tags. I introduce luggage tags are really great, Damien, because they're just colourful. I get mine from W.H. Smith's. They do the best luggage tags, by the way. And, you know, just popping one of those out with when you're working with a senior leader, a team, clients who are, you know, bring in some very complex issues, it kind of just, they relax. I actually physically see their bodies relax. And that's what you want. You want a client to feel open, that they, you know, that they're inspired and motivated. And the brain likes novelty. If we go to neuroscience, the brain likes to have new things. It engages in that. It's motivated and drawn towards that. So I think all of those things are some really good ways, and people need to know what practices to do. Often people don't know where to start. So it can really feel like, well, you know, what's the point of me doing something where I don't really know where to start, why I'm doing it? People love to know a bit more about the research. You will know your clients better than I do, but all of those things, a combination of those things being shared with your clients and actually trying things out, I think really makes a difference.
Great. Great, Jackie. And I just going to remind people, they listen to part 1 of the first webinar I did with you. There's lots of useful resources in there that you make reference to. But how about, there's a question that's come through from Georgina around, do you think it's best to handwrite rather than type, you know, journals?
I love that question because I get asked it all the time. I personally, Damien and Georgina, I have a real problem with how much paper I have because I am somebody who is very committed to handwriting. It's always been my personal preference, but as I have really delved into the research, and I love the research around expressive writing, reflective writing. I'm always seeking out new research, and there's a whole body of research around when they compared students in particular, being given information to remember, and then they tested them on how much they remembered and how much they retained in terms of their memory. And those who were asked to write out what they remembered by hand significantly remember more than those who type using their keyboards. And there's been lots of other considerable research and evidence-based research that has been done that shows that there are real differences in terms of the qualitative benefits of writing by hand. And I notice in my own practice how, if you think about it, we're overladen with social media, digital technology. I don't know, Damien, if you're familiar with the work of Cal Newport and his book, Deep Work. I think it's Deep Work, yeah. And Cal is, you know, one of those almost like social scientists out there who are really helping us really get clear on what difference engaging with social media actually has on our productivity. And not only our productivity, but our health and well-being, our stress levels, our thinking and cognitive capacities, our emotional resilience. And there's something about writing by hand that I think a lot of people are finding that it's actually more of a mindfulness practice as well. It slows us down. It allows us to access different parts of our creative brain. It goes into the right-hand side of the brain, which connects you to your creativity. So there is something, I often find that clients, they find things, they connect with things, they discover things, their intuition often emerges much more in a wholesome way than it would had they been typing away on their keyboards. And a little example, I worked with a group of medical doctors a couple of months ago, and there was about 30 of them in the room, and a couple of them did most of the exercises using their iPhones. So we were doing lots of reflective writing in the session, and to watch them, it was really interesting. They were crouched over their iPhones. So there wasn't the sort of expansiveness that those who had their pens in their hands were kind of just writing on the page, really sort of their bodies were opening out. Those who were using their keyboards, and obviously our iPhones are quite tiny screens now for most people, and they were really struggling, and they noticed that, and they were able to say that in their reflection. So I think that is another thing to really explore with your coaching client. You know, really invite them. You know, you might access a different part of your thinking just by writing.
Great, Jackie.
Lovely question.
Great. Well, look, I've got my journal ready.
Yeah.
So how about you take us through the first bite-sized session?
Great. Okay. So lovely. I'd like to introduce us to the first practice, which is a bit of a combination between what we call a free writing exercise. So what that means is you don't have to stay on topic. You can actually go off topic. You have permission to take the writing, or to allow the writing to take you wherever the writing takes you. But we are going to start off with a bit of a prompt to the writing, because that's always helpful in terms of, particularly for people who come to the writing, they think, well, I don't know where I really want to start. I don't know what I really want to say. So before I say anything else about it, let me give you the writing prompt. And I'm going to suggest that we write for about 3 minutes. And I have got my timer here, and I'll time you. And I have my little chimer here, Damien. Don't know if we hear this.
Yeah,
So
can.
Great.
Yep.
So when I chime, that is a sign to not stop mid-sentence, but just to finish off your sentence. And then we will pause and we'll come back into the class. So the prompt to get you starting on your free writing exercise, and remember, you don't have to worry about spelling, punctuation, making sense. You can write in big capital letters, do a mind map, whatever fancies you know, whatever calls you, just go with that. So the free write is just thinking about you arriving on our call today. Describe your emotional weather forecast. In other words, how would you say you arrive into the call? How are you feeling? What are you noticing in your body? What are you thinking about? What has your day been like so far? You're trying to connect with as many of the senses as possible, trying to bring in as much description around your emotionality and physicality. Just noticing what you're feeling in all of those different sounds, colors, hues, shapes, whatever comes to mind. 3 minutes on the page. Try and keep your pen on the page and write in, even if it doesn't make sense. Great. I must admit, I was totally engaged in that and wanted more time myself. Um, but I would like to do something with this, Damien,
Yeah.
now that we've done the 3 minutes. And of course, you can write for much longer, but I just want to make sure we get an opportunity to do the 3 exercises. What I'd like to invite everyone on the call to do now is maybe just draw a line under what you've written. And we're going to do what we call, and this comes from the work, and Georgina has asked to know a bit more about the work of Kathleen Adams. And I'll just say something very quickly about Kathleen Adams. She's one of the foremost kind of writers around expressive and creative reflective writing. She's based in the United States. She's written loads of books, probably 15 or more books. And they're all really good because they have a lot of the research evidence base in there as well. And she came up with a model called the journal ladder, which really brings together a whole range of different expressive and reflective writing exercises that can be used creatively with clients, individuals, in your own personal journals, with teams, with groups. And the way that it works, and I don't know, are people going to be able to just hear us, or are they going to be able to see us as well?
No, they can see you, Jackie.
Okay, I just want to hold this up, and I don't know if we can, and we can put this in the notes. This is what the journal ladder actually looks like. Let me just bring that down slightly, and I'll add this to the notes as well. But I just want to say something very quickly about it before we do the reflect write. What inspired Kathleen to create the journal ladder was because one of the things that she found in her practice, and this is something I can really identify with, is that some people, like, for instance, if we didn't have a journal prompt or a prompt to start this webinar today, for some people, just writing, just free writing is quite hard. So they actually, what she found was that some of her clients just couldn't just do a free write. If somebody was very experienced on writing in their journal, just going to their journal and just seeing what came up and writing was something that they felt they could do. But for other people, they needed more structure. So the way the journal ladder works is at one end are less structured exercises like free writing, and then the other end of the continuum are more structured reflective writing exercises. So down the bottom end of the journal ladder are things like what she calls sentence stems. So that might be a writing prompt to come into a practice. A 5-minute sprint, well, we've done a 3-minute sprint. Yeah, writing as fast as you can, just noticing what's there in your emotional weather forecast, making a list in terms of an inventory, clustering ideas together, generating lists of 100 things. So a typical list of 100 things might be 100 things that I'm really good at, or 100 things that I'm proud of myself about. Now, for some people, you know, some of your clients, you might not do 100 things, you might do 20 things or 10 things. But these are all creative, reflective ways of really stimulating writing. All the way along that continuum or up the ladder, which is into alpha poems, structured moments, unsent letters. We're going to work a bit with letters today, dialogues, looking at different writing from different perspectives, right up to free writing. Mm-hmm. And it's this idea that at one end, some of the exercises might get you to be more insightful, more intuitive, and another, the lower rung of the ladder helps with pacing, with containment, and just gives that safety of the structure. So that's just a little bit about the journal ladder, because I think that's really helpful for some people to know that really what we're doing is we're pulling some of those exercises off of the journal ladder, and we're thinking about how might we use them with ourselves, how might we use them with our clients. So to build on that, the emotional weather forecast exercise, and I'm hoping that everyone has got something that they've written, I'd like to invite everyone now to do a couple of minutes reflecting on it. And I'm going to use the basis of Kay Adams, what she calls the reflect write. And the reflect write, and I think this is really important to really for coaches to think about is that going back to reflect on your writing and inviting your clients to do that is often where a lot of the learning really emerges. So, you know, not just writing something, closing your notebook or moving on to something else, but going back and reflecting on it. And Kay Adams' Reflect Write, she has these prompts, and I'd like to offer them to you now to reflect on what you've just written. So what did you notice? What might you be aware of? What are you curious about? What are you interested in? What did you think or feel? What did you notice going on in your body? Just use any of those prompts to reflect on what you've just written.
Could you read them out again, Jackie?
Of course. What did you notice? What are you aware of? What are you curious about? What are you interested in? What are you thinking or feeling? What did you notice in your body?
Yeah.
You could equally just go back to the writing and circle and underline anything that stands out or jumps out at you from the writing. Should we do that for 2 minutes?
Great.
Great. So, Damien, there's a couple of thoughts for me around the practice, and maybe I'd like to invite people to also share any things in the chats about what they notice about that exercise. This is a great technique or tool to use at the start of a coaching or a supervision session.
Right.
It really helps people get present. It helps them to land. It leaves responsibility, choice, and awareness. Something I know those 3 tenets that you talk a lot about in your coaching, Damien, with the client.
Yeah.
They get to really show up. It introduces that unexpected question that stimulates reflection, and it often, what I find, is it helps the individuals that you're working with to really identify what's important to them. And I noticed, just even going back into that exercise, that I had a whole pattern of words and language that I was quite surprised emerged from the writing. So the word energized came up about 3 times, as did feeling good. Now, I'm not sure I would have verbalized that as succinctly as it showed up in my writing.
Yeah. Yeah, what's going on for me, Jackie, as well, just by doing that, 5 minutes in total we've done of writing, we're role modeling that whole, yeah, I suppose it doesn't need to take much time, does it? Because I went on quite a journey there in terms of what I was writing down and noticing about my day so far.
Yeah.
Was.
And Georgina's just asked the question, how would you use the luggage tag?
Mm-mm.
And Georgina, the fact that I'm writing on A4 paper at the moment, I just have them and I put them on the table. And sometimes, particularly with senior leaders, they just like the idea of writing on something different. It doesn't feel like it's the pressure of another report, another, something heavy with words. And they just feel a luggage tag, just doing that 6-minute practice. And, they might write on 1 or 2 luggage tags, and that just really seems to engage them. And it's something that's very easy to just pop into a notebook or a journal or something that they're carrying around with them. So I find that works really, really well.
I was actually imagining a client that I was working with last week about their transition into a new organization, and I was thinking what a nice exercise to do with them with a luggage label, getting them to reflect on their identity as they're transitioning.
And of course that reflects travel. The luggage tag reflects transitions and travels. So you've got all the metaphorical things that are really supporting the process. And I think it's really good to just think of different ways that we can really think about things that engages and stimulates the learning of our clients.
Yeah, great. But just be curious, if anybody else has got any reflections from completing that exercise, feel free to add them to the chat panel as we're continuing with the session.
Yes, and I want to say that I'm also I'm doing a lot of work in Bloomberg and Northern Trust at the moment, coaching women leaders. And they often they're very in their 30s, they're very ambitious, they're doing really well in the organization, but a lot of their emotional content gets submerged in the desire to, be really great leaders. And I found that really helping them to have a space where so much of their emotionality that they want to talk about is contained, but has a safe space for them to express it. And this is a really good practice, especially when you're only working with women leaders for 2 or 3 sessions. This works really well.
Yeah, well, Martin's just put direct to truth and honesty. That was his experience as he was doing the exercise. So it sort of aligns with what you were just saying there,
Yeah, I can't see his comment on my chat.
No, he just put it on the questions panel.
Oh, right. Okay, great. And also Natalia said a progressive change in the physical state from tension to release. Finished with a deep inhale and exhale. Great. So shall we move on, Damien?
Yeah, great. It'd be good to try and get another couple in so people can experience.
Yeah, lovely. So let's move on then to our next writing exercise. And I'm going to let you into a little secret. As well as buying books, I love stationery. Yeah, so paper chase is my friend. I'm always in there getting a new letter writing kit. And I've introduced writing letters into a lot of the work that I do with teams. And we use it in a particular way. And I've also introduced it into working with individuals. Now, I've been doing this for a long time. But what was really interesting was I went to a workshop last year with Elizabeth Gilbert. She wrote the book Eat, Pray, Love. And she had a whole day of people writing 6 letters. A whole day. Over 900 people signed up for that workshop. And for a whole day, they wrote letters to themselves. And she works with 6 key areas of what she calls a creative life. So I'm going to tell you what they are. They are fear, enchantment, permission, persistence, trust, and divinity. And they're great because they're really around areas where people feel blocked. where we often, or the areas of aspects of our psychological well-being that we want to be reconnected with. And I saw the magic of what it was like of having like 900 people in one space at Friends Meeting House, all working in this way and processing and gaining insights. But I have to say, Liz, I have been doing this for a long time. So the way I've done, what I've done is I've built on this in my work. And what I often say to clients, and the way I introduce it in, is that often when you go into work with a client, some key qualities or areas of the work becomes really clear. So with some clients, it's about their health and their well-being. For some clients, about their confidence. For some clients, it's about reconnecting with their creativity. So there's always something, a key theme, an overarching quality that the client would like to be more connected to deepen, to get better at. So you can literally take any aspect of your work with a client and create a letter around it. So what we're going to do is work creatively with emotions and feelings that might surface in a coaching session. And we're going to work with it. So feelings like, in addition to what I've said, fear, self-confidence. And the way I think about it is this is another way of really accessing the client's own resourcefulness and bringing in working creatively with our inner coach or our inner mentor. So you're really, as a coach, you're thinking about ways that you can really resource your clients. You know, we're always thinking about that as coaches. You know, whatever we're doing, whether it's transformational questions we're asking, it's a particular methodology, tool or technique that we're using. How can your client be better resourced to respond to whatever it is they want to work with in the coaching? And I think of it as you're helping clients to step into another room to explore the issue from a new or a different perspective. So if we were to say, let's use fear, self-doubt, creativity. Fear, self-doubt, creativity, and confidence. Damien, is there anything else that your clients comes up in your client work that you notice is quite a prominent theme?
Stress.
Yeah.
So it'd be workload pressure, really.
So if I change that to, and the reason I'm changing it to, let's just say you wrote a letter, your letter came from your well-being.
Yeah.
Yeah, great. Can do either. So let's just work with, and if anybody else has something that they notice comes up a lot in their coaching, with their coaching clients, just write it into the chat. So let's work with the themes of fear, self-doubt, creativity, confidence, stress and well-being. And I'm going to ask people to just choose one of those to write a letter, that they're going to write a letter to themselves from. And this is the way I'd like to suggest that you do it. So let's see. If I said to you, I'm going to give everyone a script. I'll use myself as an example. So, dear Jackie, I am your fear, and this is what I want to tell you about. So you might want to think about some issue that your fear is connected to. So it might be that, you know, you really want to write a book that really builds on the work that you're doing as a coach, but you've got a lot of fear and anxiety about it. Or it might be to your creativity, that you'd like to really express more of your creativity and bring more of your creativity into your work as a coach practitioner. You know, so whatever it is, your letter is going to be phrased basically using this terminology. Dear Jackie, I am your fear. Dear Jackie, I am your creativity. And this is what I want to tell you. So again, trust the process, see where the writing takes you. We'll write for 6 minutes and we'll see what emerges.
Right.
Just to add, Damien, when we're in workshops, we actually give people letter writing paper with envelopes, and I cannot tell you the difference that that makes to this process.
And do you take the letter and then post it to them, or do they
No, these are unsent letters that people hold themselves. And I'll say a little bit more about that after we do the actual practice. Great question. Thank
Great.
you.
Thanks, Jackie.
Yeah. So should we do 6 minutes?
Yeah, great.
And please, if something else, another theme emerges that is not around the areas that I've just mentioned, please feel free to write about that. Great. And so now can I invite everyone to take 2 minutes to just reflect on writing your letter? A few little prompts. How did it feel in your body? What did you notice? And also, how might you use this with a client? 2 minutes.
In terms of time, Jackie, we're about 19 minutes past 1, so we've got just over 10 minutes left, yeah?
Okay, thank you. I think that must be 2 minutes. I think my clock just stopped. So Damien, I'm really conscious of the time. So if anyone wants to write anything in the chat about how they found that. And I was, when I was preparing for the session, I worked with a group of therapists about 10 days ago, and they did this exercise, but they wrote about 4 or 5 letters. And I was reading their evaluation forms, and these are some of the things that they said. They said they can't wait to use the letter writing with their clients they work with. The writing gave them hope and inspiration. It showed them the importance of naming both the positive and the negative. They were able to see the future that was sometimes hidden. They were energized after the letter writing. And it helped them to tap into their best selves by reflecting and putting the whirlwind that was on their head onto paper. So it was a combination of both the letter writing and the reflective writing. So I really wanted to just really encourage people to really play with this, because sometimes it's easy to stick with what we know and not want to kind of, you know, Einstein said you can't solve the problem with the same thinking. And it's the same with some of these practices. And I've just seen some of the comments. Natalia was asking, would I ask the client to share any of this, either the letter or the reflection? I always pose it as an invitation. If the client wants to share, they will. And if not, they don't have to. And Damien, you asked a question around, you know, would you send the letter? Some of these are letters to self. But equally, we get clients to use this creatively with writing letters to people that they're having difficulties with, a difficult boss or a difficult peer at work. And those are definitely letters that they don't send, but they can use it to cathartically release and let go of emotions and feelings that often get pushed down or not respected or valued. So Talia, there's so many different creative ways, and you know, it's always the decision always lies with the client about what they want to share or express in the session. Fazia, you said that was revealing a deeper layer to the saboteur, you know, some of the inner critic, some of those sub-personalities that kind of show up. And this is all the good stuff that we want to get into contact with in the work that we're doing with our clients. But of course, the clients, the pen, you know, the power is in the pen. And I just want to go back to the earlier comment about the writing by hand or by writing on the computer or typing. And just want to remind everyone, you know, people will choose what medium is best for them. And my thing is, if they're writing, that's good. Let your clients, if they're using their typing skills and that's best for them, go with that. Georgina says she just loved this, so inspiring. My confidence voice is quite loud and speaks from such a place of wisdom. I mean, that's the kind of access we want to give our clients in our work, to put them back in touch with their own resourcefulness. The exercise really sparks me. Wait till you get your letter writing kit out, Georgina, and you bring that into your coaching. It's going to spark you and your clients even more. So this is great. I can see that people are really connecting in with the exercise, Martin as well. Shall we finish off with our tree exercise? I know we've not got that long, but we can do it. You can see how you can lengthen these or shorten these exercises.
Great. We've got about 5 minutes left, Jackie.
Great. We can do it. So I just want to finish off with, it's a much longer exercise that I use on in groups and with clients. Just to say, to suffice it, is that I often bring in images of trees that have been printed out. So Damien's going to bring up some images of some trees, and I want you to just meditate on these trees as I just talk you through this exercise. So this final exercise is using the metaphor of trees, and we won't have time to go into all of that, but it's so rich when I introduce the idea of trees and nature to people, because it brings up so much in terms of what people are connected to with nature and trees. So Damien, can we pull up the trees and have a look at those?
Yeah.
Here are some images of trees. So I just want you to reflect on these as you think about your own coaching practice. And as you look at the trees, just think about which of these images either reflects how you would like your coaching practice to be, or shows you what is missing from your coaching practice, or what is already there in your coaching practice. So this is another kind of free writing with a prompt, but this time we're using picture prompts. And this time we'll write for 2 or 3 minutes as we begin to wrap up. There's a couple more images. And once you've got an image in mind or images, just turn to your page. How does these images of these trees reflect what is already there in your coaching practice, or what you would like to be there? And how does that tree or trees spark what you would like to be there or appreciate about what is there? 2 or 3 minutes, and I'll time and chime. And Damien, maybe we could just keep running those images whilst. Maybe we could just run them again so people be reminded of them as they're writing. So just another 30 seconds. And of course, you can continue this after our session today. This could be a nice bridge into your own journal writing or reflective writing. So if you want to bring your writing to a close, or a pause, actually, I imagine for many of you it will be a pause, and this will be great to continue afterwards. And of course, Damien will be able to share the images.
Great.
And this is a really, people love trees, and I just find that this is such a good way to awaken just our observational skills, because, you know, just being out in nature is a really good way of sharpening your observation skills, let alone all of the physical benefits of, you know, connecting with trees and nature. And I find that this just works so beautifully in coaching sessions, and I use it a lot with teams and groups. I lay out images of trees, and there's a whole longer process. And Damien, I can share the actual tree exercise that I have written up that I've been using for quite a long time now. That just gives more details on the whole exercise that, you know, I love coaches to use and take into their own practice.
It's very generous, Jackie. Thank you.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, so if Jackie sends that on to me, we'll send that out to everybody that's attended today. So Jackie, as always, thanks for your wisdom, and thanks for the sharing that you've done. I mean, you know, it's definitely made me think about how I can use reflective writing even more in my practice. Yeah, so you know, letters. I tend to use letters towards the end when the coachee may be finishing with me, but actually now I'm thinking, you know, there's going to be other moments that we can do this. So thank you so much. There's so much I think we've all taken away from the session, and really appreciate your time. So for Jackie, is there anything you'd like to say just before I move on and just talk about what's next?
Yeah, I just want to say I really encourage people to be creative. I think one of the things with reflective writing, if we just see black and white words on the page, sometimes that just kind of turns people off. And my mission is to really enhance the creativity in which we can really engage with creativity. And I just want to finish with a study, a Harvard study called Making Experience Count, the role of reflection in individual learning, by Francesco Gino et al. And it really points to, it's a 2016 study, and what it says is that we learn through reflecting on the experience. And it particularly speaks to that once we've got experience, really, once you've accumulated it, the most powerful way to improve your performance in the future is to reflect on your experience. So if we can have a whole toolkit of engaging ways to stimulate not only ourselves but our clients, I think this is going to make a real difference to coaching as a profession and how we grow and develop in you know, a society that is going through so much change, that we as coaches are being called to be change agents, really. And if we need to do that with ourselves and with our clients in ways that we are really making an impact and making a difference.
Thanks, Jackie. You certainly are bringing the creativity to this work, so thank you.
Thank you.
And just for everybody that's listening, just to say that our next webinar is going to be on the 2nd of April at 2 o'clock UK time, and that's with Jenny Van Hall, and she's going to be talking about some particular case studies of her work with coaching clients around developing presence. So that's going to be our next session. So I hope you can join us for that one. As I said earlier, this session will be uploaded to YouTube by the end of the week. So if you want to listen again, please do. As soon as I get those resources through from Jackie, and perhaps you can include that research, the title of that research piece as well, Jackie, we'll get those sent out to everybody. So thanks for making the time, and look forward to seeing everybody again soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jackie.